First, I would like to introduce on stage, please, Sunil Patil from Qualcomm. Sunil, please come. You can stay here or you can stay here as you prefer. So I will introduce you, but after, this is your clicker, and you can choose this one or this one as you feel comfortable. So Sunil Patil is Vice President Product Management at Qualcomm, and I'm very happy because you lead the cellular modem and RF transceiver planning team at Qualcomm Technology. You have over 20 years of experience developing and commercializing leading cellular technologies and products globally. So it's my pleasure to have you walking us through how Qualcomm is seeing the 5G broadcast market. Thank you.
Okay, so I think it was the panel discussion was really excellent for me to get the broader perspective, so it was very useful. And so I'll go over from really Qualcomm perspective. I mean, we've been very active in standardization, and I'll talk about that, but also share from product perspective. There was a lot of talk about when will terminals show up. I think later Motorola will talk. They'll probably say, well, it depends on Qualcomm. But I'll share some of the perspective on, from product perspective side. One thing before I even talk about or go over these slides, there is, the term 5G broadcast sometimes create confusion, and maybe not this crowd, but I assume this will be shared widely. And the reason it creates confusion is because there is also another way to do broadcasts, which is part of the mobile network, part of really a feature of mobile networks. We tried that in 3G, we tried that in 4G. And it's really what we usually call as low power network, but the reason I want to highlight that is we're talking about a different broadcast technology here, which is a different spectrum, different network, and that is very critical because a lot of carriers, or really the general assumption, because the part of the MNO network broadcast takes up your capacity from your existing network, whereas this is a separate network. It does not have impact. It really augments the capacity of the existing networks. So I do kind of point out that we're talking about the 5G broadcast here is not really MBS or eMBMS features. Now coming to 5G broadcast, obviously, why 5G broadcast? Now, from technology perspective, this is a 3GPP standardized technology that is very important because that really has the technology itself can give very wide, broad scale, both in terms of commercialization and deployment perspective. It also means that, like just I said, it complements the existing cellular networks, and at the same time, because it's 3GPP compliant, the same devices that are operating or that really operate on the cellular networks can also enable 5G broadcast technology without any additional hardware issues. So if one tries to do, let's say, a non-3GPP compliant broadcast technology, that most likely will require additional chipset in your device, which I can tell you no device manufacturer wants to put one more chip in their device, and it makes it very expensive and cannot fit in the form factor. So that's why it's very critical. That's really one of the biggest value proposition of 5G broadcast, that it is 3GPP compliant. Then in terms of core features, this is seamless operation, so that's very critical. Flexible spectrum. This is, of course, very low frequency spectrum that also gives, in terms of coverage, provide, really coverage across the network. Using existing towers, I think earlier somebody mentioned that you can kind of take advantage of existing high tower network. Then it is receive only mode that also makes things simpler from implementation perspective. And there could be different models. Of course, there are dedicated broadcast operators. I think most of you are here. But there could be partnership with MNOs as well. So again, this space is evolving. There are different countries may have different models in terms of deployment. And one point I mentioned earlier, the seamless coexistence, which is really the key part. Like without additional hardware, there could be some front-end components, but beyond that, you don't need additional hardware. So it can exist seamlessly with existing 4G and 5G technologies that are already in the devices. Now, we as Qualcomm, we've been very active in this space. My colleagues from standards organization have been very instrumental in standardizing this in 3GPP in release 14. We have collaborated really globally with various partners, including Rohde & Schwarz, on the infra side, broadcasters, content providers, in showcasing even some of our OEM customers in showcasing what is possible with 5G broadcast. At Paris Olympics, we enabled our customers for these trials, and the goal was that the users should be able to see what's possible without bringing down the network. They should be able to access live events, and again, our goal has been to really propagate this message globally. So as part of that, we've been providing kind of reference devices as well, not just smartphones, but even like fixed wireless devices, tablets, etc., just to showcase what's possible. Now, of course, the biggest question is like, okay, but when can this be commercially deployed? Now, like I said, we've been very active. As we are hearing, I've been saying it. The panel described it. The use cases are very clear, and I don't think there is really any doubt about how this can be beneficial for the ecosystem and for the users. And as I said, we've been helping to showcase that. Having said that, there are still some challenges, and even though we've been showing these, trial devices, but this something like implementing 5G broadcast feature on a chipset is actually not that simple. Especially the main value proposition is that this needs to work seamlessly with existing 4G and 5G, which means one needs to, this has like impact across the software stack for the chipset, really going all the way to the most kind of the lowest layer of the firmware. And so that is an effort that needs to be put in, of course, from our side. In addition, this has impact on front end. So our OEM partners have to invest in it. So representing a little bit the device side, there has to be like very clear incentive for the device ecosystem. And just saying that this is good for users is not going to be good enough. And of course, we are trying to encourage all our partners to do that. But I do want to kind of highlight that point. And if so, we are working with all the ecosystem partners to align with this vision. And if everything is aligned, our goal is to enable devices by 28, like it was shown earlier. So that's really our objective, and we really hope we are able to achieve that together with all our partners. Thank you. Thank you.
We are a little bit late, so we will move without transition to Mohamed Abdul Ghaffar, Mags, who is Executive Director of Engineering at 312 or 312 Labs, Motorola Mobility. And before you start, my secret question to you is, what does it mean, 312 Labs? Please welcome.
Want to take a stab at that? So 312 refers to the area code of Chicago, although we are a global company and we have teams in Chicago, Bangalore, China, Latin America, but the 312 is where bulk of our headquarters and teams are present. So we use that to call our lab, which is a forward-looking technology and proof of concept development team that I lead there. Anyways, thank you, Felipe. I'm glad to be here. Good morning, ladies and gentlemen. Before I dive into my talk, I just want to give a quick historic trivia. Many of you probably know this. Motorola actually started out as a radio box manufacturer back in the 1930s. In its 100 years of history, almost 100 years of history now, with the 2029, we will be 100 years. That's where the name Motorola, because they were supplying the radios to the motor vehicles, right? So we have a huge legacy there. But many of you may not know this. Motorola also actually did television set-top boxes after World War II, and they had that business going for 2 or 3 decades until they sold that business to Matsushita, now Panasonic, I think in early 1970s, and invented the whole mobile phone industry back in 1973 with the first official cell phone call on April 5th, 1973. So that's a little digression there, the legacy of Motorola in this industry. The key message is the analogy or the parallel to the 5G broadcast is also, I thought, was interesting. This is not the first attempt to broadcast. As many of you in the industry are probably aware of, there were attempts to broadcast through technologies like DVB-H. Sunil glossed over that. Media flow, which is a big investment. So when he said it's really a lot of work involved and why it is important to have the standards, he really means it because they have done that. We were partners to that. The media flow was done 20 years back, and let's just say that those were not good commercial success, right? One of the fundamental reasons was they were not based on standards or very proprietary, right, among many other reasons. So that is one important aspect that's going good with this 5G broadcast that Sunil very eloquently talked about, that it is a very standards-based and it builds on the 5G standards, and that can really have the potential to bring the scale and bring the whole ecosystem together, the operators, the chipset vendors, the infra vendors like Rohde & Schwarz, and device manufacturers like us. So that's one important point that could potentially lead to the success of it. When we did the device, I just was going down the nostalgic path, and I was trying to look at the device that we did. The second reason, when we were trying to do media flow back in almost 20 years back, the devices were looking like this, the feature phones, and the display was just a 2-inch display. And the whole display size is like 110 or barely 4-inch long, the display. The current, I just wanted to play a quick video while I'm talking. But imagine the devices that we have now, right? The device that we have now have a 7-inch display with a stunning 22:9 aspect ratio, cinematic view. So that makes a huge difference for video consumption. So when the first attempts were made, these are not really suitable. So now the device has really evolved, and they have come to a point that they are really much more suitable with the very high resolution, high density resolution on the displays. And somebody was talking about swimming pool, I think in the earlier speech during the Olympics. But but we can really use these devices in different conditions. Like you can really take it into the water and you can still watch videos. So the devices have really evolved. So that's an important second factor I feel is critical for this success of this thing. The third thing is the early trials. We have a lot more early trials have been happening, and Motorola is happy to be partnering with various 5G broadcast network operators and infra vendors like Rohde & Schwarz, and we have been engaged in several trials. We had a trial in Brazil last year. We had successfully demoed it at the Set Expo. And then for wireless emergency alert trials, we have Qualcomm has been very instrumental in helping us update our existing devices that Sunil had in the slides, our Motorola Edge and Motorola Razr devices as part of this extended trials. We have also been involved in several trials, not just here, also in Italy, the RAI. We had a big trial that was happening, and I am proud to share that we had our devices actually had the best performance actually. So there was another smartphone that was used first, and then the picture on the right side was done with the Motorola device. You can see the performance coverage improvement that we were able to get in these trials. So that really goes to show that we have been doing a lot of effort to really prove the feasibility of the technology and making it viable. There were several other trials in different countries like Czechoslovakia, or all the countries pretty much that was shown in the first introductory slide we have been a part of, and we are very glad to be involved in that. One other important factor that may not be very obvious, also I want to touch upon the point that I think David was referring to, oh, you are already doing 600 megahertz, it's all done, we can do it. Yes, for most part it is true. And I want to build on what Sunil was also emphasizing, right? There are a lot of subtle details involved in this thing. First, when we were doing this at 700 megahertz, this was choosing channel 55, 716 to 728. In the radio technology, those of you who know this, you need the size of the chassis to be close to half wavelength. And at the frequencies we are operating at 600 megahertz, these are far from it. This is barely even quarter wavelength, right? These are not efficient radiators. Yes, the frequency, low band is good for coverage. Whatever the physics of the propagation, the square law, right? Inverse square law response, it is good in the lower frequencies, but then all the advantages are lost when you don't have the proper device and chassis design and RF design. So that is a major shift that has happened, and we have the deep experience doing this on an internal device like this, and then it's a little bit relatively easier to do it on a bigger device like what we have now. But still, there are a lot of challenges. As you go in frequency, this is just a sample data of radiation efficiency, how it falls off as you go in frequency. So there are some techniques and things that you need to do to make sure that you are able to bring the efficiency sufficiently from a radio design point of view. And also, Sunil touched upon it briefly, there are front-end components. David talked about 600 megahertz is already used in US. Yes, it is, but it is a duplex frequency. It is not a full receive band, right? So there are additional path we need to manage and add additional components. So there is some more additional details we need to add there. So there are some challenges, but we are capable and we have the expertise. We can do that. So my closing comment is, not only is Motorola technically capable, we, along with our parent company, Lenovo, we have the scale. We are shipping almost close to 200 million devices every year. PCs, laptops, tablets, right? And the phones, the modern phones that we have now, the screen size, not only have they become from this size that I have, which is really like this clicker that I have in my hand, to this Razr phone, which we showed. Now we have these foldable type phones, which provides a much bigger chassis. And we have the partnership, like we are the sponsor of, somebody talked about World Cup in 2030. We are the sponsor of Lenovo. Motorola is the device sponsor of FIFA World Cup this year, and next year Women's World Cup. And Lenovo is also the sponsor of F1 sporting event. These are the live events people want to watch live. And so we have the technology expertise and we have the industry partnership and ecosystem relationship with the providers like Rohde & Schwarz and Qualcomm to make it happen. But as a OEM that has been there from the very first mobile call to today's foldable technology and immersive displays, Motorola understands both the legacy and the future of mobile invention. We are even bringing in more advanced display technologies to make it more immersive and useful for consumers. And the RF expertise, we are proven out with all these trials I talked about, the viability of the technology. And we feel with the partnership with the 5G broadcast ecosystem, we think it's not only technically viable, but also commercially and meaningfully, societally very meaningful, as some of the speakers talked about the geopolitical and the natural and man-made tensions that we have, right? So this technology is really important, so we really believe in this thing. But one key point I want to really double down on what Sunil said is we need to collaborate, but the monetization, the business model need to be made worthwhile. Yes, we will get to 100 million units, and that would be a good scale, and we can do that at scale, even with all the challenges we have in the industry, like the memory problem that we have been dealing with now. But the first step, right, that is usually called pipe cleaning. Usually they say they'll get to that 1.8 million unit. There is a lot of work that needs to happen. So we are doing in free R&D work, both Qualcomm and us, and Infra vendors doing it at the beginning. But to get that first 1.8 million units launched, there is some level of incentive and partnership that need to be made worthwhile for us to really do that first step before we can get to that. So with that, I want to look forward to that happen in a meaningful way. This forum potentially could facilitate it. Our business teams would be eager to engage with the task force and make it happen. Thank you very much.